Hi, I'm Mark, and this is my latest video about my 4-level ACDF surgery. Apologize up front, my voice is a little froggy today. It's the first I've noticed it. I've been doing a lot of talking today, but all in all, I'm really in great spirits and feeling good. In this video, I wanted to talk about the pre-surgery process quickly and then surgery day. And just a little background, I've had 4-level ACDF 1 week ago today, C3 through C7. And while there are quite a few single and 2-level videos, a good number of 3-level videos out there on YouTube. People have gone through, 1, 2, and 3-level ACDF. There are very few 4-level ACDF videos from patients. There's tons of videos on the actual procedure, which I urge you to avoid unless you are until after your surgery. Actual accounts of the surgery and the recovery, pre-surgery process and the recovery process, there's not a lot out there. So there's a few that really helped me. One in particular, Lee Lowry, who I'll link in my videos, has made some awesome videos that are really helpful in terms of information. And just as importantly, and I know that's why he's doing them and why he did them, they're positive, they're uplifting, and it's great to see that. So I wanted to help out by doing the same thing. So let's talk about the pre-surgery process. This all happened very quickly for me. Once I made the decision to get the surgery, I was ready. I wanted to get it done as soon as possible. I felt like I was on borrowed time already in terms of the strength loss and atrophy that I had experienced. While the pain was very minimal by the time surgery day came, just a week prior, it was still pretty bad. So I was ready. So the pre-testing and COVID and all that stuff, that all happened all within, I'd say, a week, about a week and a half. So the first step was, and I wasn't aware of all this stuff, so hopefully it's helpful to any of you getting this surgery. So you have to have a final kind of visit with your surgeon, and you have to sign consent. Basically, they go through, I recall the forms were, they're legal forms. Basically, you're signing away that the surgery may or may not work, and you may die as a result of it, blah, blah, blah. If that shocks you or surprises you, then maybe you ought to rethink this thing, right? So there is both a long form, which I believe the nursing staff had me fill that out, or someone from administration at the surgeon's office. And then there's a short form, which the surgeon himself actually had to bring in and had me sign in front of him. While he was there, I got some final questions answered. And then the next step was what's called pre-op testing. That was done downtown at, my surgeon's affiliated with Jefferson University Hospital in Philadelphia. His office, or at least where I met with him prior to surgery, was all in the South Philly Navy Yard. It's a business complex that also happens to be a Navy Yard with decommissioned U.S. naval ships in it. It's actually a pretty cool place. It sounds a little suspect, but it wasn't. It isn't. So this was I was happy to go downtown. As much as I don't like the traffic, it was good to get a feel for where the hospital was, which was like 2-3 blocks from where the pre-op test building I had to report to was. So I went to pre-op test building and then afterwards walked to the hospital so that I knew exactly where I was going the morning of the surgery, how I would park, all that stuff. So at pre-op, they did blood draw. They drew a lot of blood. It felt like a lot of blood, but you know, and they tested everything, which I passed with flying colors, except for my potassium level was a little high. I never did get a explanation why. They did test it the next day, I believe, in the hospital, or that afternoon, or my first day in the hospital. They did test it again, and I don't recall if it was still high. I don't know why it was, but I wasn't too concerned. I think, if I recall, I did look it up, and I think it's probably I was just a little dehydrated, but I don't know. They did an EKG, past that, and then I met, and I wasn't really expecting this, I met with an internal medicine doctor who did a full physical, asked me tons of questions. I mean, it was a good visit. It was actually lengthier than the typical physical I get with my primary care physician, who I rarely go to anyway. So it was kind of cool. So past that, that internal medicine doc said I was one of the healthiest people she'd seen in quite some time. So wished me luck, and off I went. That was on, I believe, a Thursday. The following Monday morning, I had to drive back to the South Philadelphia location where I had to do a drive-through COVID test, so nasal swab. I had never had one of those. I was expecting the worst. I remember, hearing that, they jab you and poke you in the brain with these things. It was nothing. It was completely painless, and it took 10 minutes, and if that, and I was out of there. I had a runny nose leading up to that. So I was nervous. I was going to fail this COVID test, and oh my goodness, the last thing I wanted was for this surgery to get delayed. So I found out the morning before the surgery is when they updated the portal, and I found out that I had passed. So I was relieved. And that was it. So when I left the pre-op, during the pre-op testing, they provided me with instructions on what I was to do the night before surgery, or leading up to the surgery. And this is important. A lot of people, I'm not sure, know this. Like, you shouldn't be taking really any medications that aren't necessary. I think fish oil, vitamin E. There are some, check with your doctor, your surgeon, early. But basically, you shouldn't be taking anything unless you absolutely need it and it's cleared with your doctor. The big one that most people know about is NSAIDs, Aleve, and that sort of thing. You can't be taking that stuff prior to surgery. I think it's 10 days. It could be longer. Fortunately for me, the pain at that point especially was very minimal. So I wasn't taking anything even when it was bad. I'm just not a fan of medications to begin with. So I was good. I was taking a men's multivitamin, but I had stopped it a week prior. And I didn't want any issues. They also were very insistent. They talked me through this and also had written directions that the night before surgery I was to shower, and to not shower the morning of. So I was to shower the night before, and immediately afterwards they provided a total of 6 antibacterial wipes with instructions. So like one wipe would be for this arm, one wipe for this arm, and and it stepped through. And so I was to wipe down. That was actually a hassle. I normally don't grow a straggly beard like this. I'm a clean shaven kind of guy. So I shaved for the last time, I figured, for a long time, and I have a sensitive skin, my neck, so I normally have to put on aftershave, otherwise it burns and it's very uncomfortable. I didn't want to risk anything by putting on any kind of aftershave, so I left it, air dried it, and then I used these wipes, and boy, my neck was burning for like 3-4 hours afterwards. But hey, this is what you got to do. So did that. Strict instructions: no food or water, not even a drop, after midnight the night before surgery. So that was no problem. We went out to dinner locally. I think the last time I ate or drank anything was like 7 or 8 o'clock the night before, and I was good to go. So that was that. That afternoon, I got the call. So the afternoon before surgery, I got the call with a report time. So my surgery, I was to report at 4:45 a.m., which I was thrilled about because A, I wanted to be early, and B, the sooner the better, because I knew I wasn't going to sleep anyway. I was going to be on edge. So I was thrilled with that time. So I slept maybe 3 hours total the night before. The hospital's about 30. I live in the suburbs, so it was about a 30-minute drive into the city, which is smooth sailing because no one's on the road at that point. Got there about 30 minutes early. Checked into the hospital where at Jefferson, they have a valet right there. It couldn't be more convenient. It's really pretty inexpensive too. So that was great. Logistically, it turned out really great for us. Pulled in, checked into the valet, and from there, we checked in and went to some room. I forget the room we were told, but it was on the paperwork I was provided, and checked in. Within a couple of minutes, a nurse came out, called my name. My wife and I were directed back to I don't know what these rooms are called, but I'll just call it a pre-surgery room. Tons of beds everywhere, and not a single person in there except me, my wife, and occasionally a nurse would come in and out. We were early. So eventually, after like 10 minutes, the nurse comes in and she asked me a whole series of questions. I don't remember most of them. She did say they were going to take blood again to check my potassium because they had noted that it was elevated. Did that. She handed me a gown, had me, strip, privately. I stripped down and put all my belongings into the backpack that I had brought, and then that was to be my wife's. She was going to take it with her, and then after that, after I changed, she came back in with a set of wipes, those antibacterial wipes, and she wiped me down again, which I was happy about. Hey, the infection is, it's a real thing with these surgeries. So you've got, it's a very, I think it's less than 1%, but it's a chance you want to mitigate. So one of the questions she asked me that I think is important to know, and I was aware of this, but I looked it up online in advance, and in my state, it's not necessary. I don't believe. Thankfully, I didn't need to find out the hard way. But the topic of advanced directives came up. So if something happens during surgery, if something unexpected is encountered and they need a decision before they can do it, apparently it's not a matter of, your surgeon can just make the call. The last thing I wanted was to be woken up, brought out of anesthesia just to ask me, hey, we've got to do another level, or we've got to do this or that. So I made it clear, while I didn't have a written advanced directive, I should have, just to make it really clear. I verbally author it, in front of the nurse. I told the nurse, please, my wife is my decision maker while I am incapacitated. So you can get those forms, templates, advanced directives forms online. They're free. You can get them. Just fill it out. Look for the one for your state. Fill it out. I believe in Pennsylvania that a verbal is good enough. That's what I read. But hey, you know, that may not be the case. Thankfully for me, although they did run into a pretty big thing that they were unexpecting, they weren't expecting during my surgery. It wasn't something that they would have needed a decision on. So that was it. I was ready to roll. I was a little bit about my mindset going into this. I was positive, realistic, but positive. I had avoided the Facebook forums for ACDF groups and all that stuff, other than asking, you know, targeted searches like, you know, what helped you post-surgery during recovery, like, you know, ice packs or that sort of thing. I avoided anything else. It just wasn't worth the trouble. All right, so I was waiting for surgery. I was wheeled into, from there I was wheeled into into another room that's like a queue room for OR. So I think it was right outside of, or very close to the OR. And it was all staff that were directly involved in the operating rooms there. So this is where it gets a little more interesting, hopefully, right? I was in a gurney and I was wheeled up against into like a bay. There was no one else there, no other patients. Again, I was the first person, I think, getting it in line. I was glad about that. There I met kind of like a stream of people came in and out of my bedside there to introduce themselves. I met with teams of anesthesiologists, neuromonitoring doctors, my surgeon and his assistants, my OR nurses, at least probably roughly 10 people. I quickly learned that, which I didn't know in advance, for each of these roles, like so surgeon, anesthesiology, neuromonitoring, there are, I think, 3 people. There's like the main surgeon, then there's a surgeon that I don't know, and I'm gonna call them assistants. I don't know their titles. Are they residents or are they fellows? I have no idea who these people were. I just know they were tasked with taking care of me. So I thank them, and I apologize if I'm botching up their titles. But I learned that my surgeon had 2 other surgeons that were working with him, one of which was going to be in the OR with he and of course me. Same with anesthesiology and the others, I assume. The only issue I had, well, there was 2 things. I was there so early that I was sitting there for a good hour and 45 minutes, hour and a half. But it went by fast. You know, it was good. The big thing was an anesthesiologist, I think, was tasked with putting in an IV. I had trouble. My right arm was atrophied enough that it wasn't getting good blood flow. They had trouble at the pre-op testing the week prior getting blood out of it, so they switched to the other hand. So I told this guy, use the left side. He tried. He looked nervous. I don't think either was completely new to this or was completely incompetent. I think it was the former though. He tried, stuck me, couldn't get it, went to the other side, kept, you know, tapping my hand. Eventually he went and got the next level up assistant who came in and watched and said, and they thought they had it. He's like, oh yeah, there it is, that's good. But boy, this was about a 10-minute, 15-minute process that I wasn't comfortable with. But I thought, okay, there was a second set of eyes on this, and it worked. Funny story. After I was post-op, I was in my actual hospital room. I looked down and I noticed that the nurse said, "Wow, you have a great IV there." The way they put that in, I don't know anything about IVs, but she said that's really well done. I'm going to leave that there, and I'll put in a new one as well, so we could switch between them. And that's when I noticed that the IV was in the opposite arm of where that anesthesiologist had put it last. He had to switch. So I asked one of the surgeons, I believe, came in and checked on me, and I asked, and he said that the original IV had blown. I don't know what that means even. I should Google it, but at this point I don't care. So, hey, be your own advocate. If something's not right, speak up. I probably took a risk there that I shouldn't have taken. So the last person before OR, the last person I met, I honestly don't recall who she said she was. She was dressed like a doctor, a nurse. I just don't know. But I believe she was an OR nurse or head nurse. She said she would be assisting my surgeon in the OR. She asked me, kind of to get to know me. I guess we both had some time, before this thing, because I was so early. She asked me what symptoms I had, why I chose to get the surgery. And then she kind of asking me, how did you choose your surgeon? And I told her I had actually, it was kind of a long story, but I had consulted with 5 different neurosurgeons and or orthopedic surgeons because they all had a different recommendation for me. All said I needed surgery ASAP, but they all had a different recommendation. There's more on that in the previous video, where I go into painstaking detail on that process. And then she leaned over and whispered to me, and I remember this. I can remember very clearly. She said that, that's why I was asking. You have the absolute best surgeon in this area, if not the greater area. And she said, I'm not just saying that. If it was me or my family, he would be the one I would get this surgery done by. So, I knew that, quite frankly. Everyone thinks they have the top surgeon. This is part of the problem. Everyone thinks they have the best doctor because they're nice, or because I made sure my guy was published at lots of scientific journals, lots of medical journals. I had asked other surgeons, I dropped his name, and vice versa. So I had a couple of surgeons, one in New York and one in Philly, that I knew were top, truly top, as rated by their peers and by their experience and their record. So that made me feel good, and I said thank you, and that was it. And then the next thing I knew, I was being wheeled into. I was waiting a while, and then I'm being wheeled into the OR. I remember they asked me to transfer myself from the wheeled gurney, to the actual OR table, which was surprisingly kind of narrow. I get on it and I placed my head into this sort of stiff yellow, I remember it was just a golden yellow, sort of not a pillow, but like a head rest. And then they asked me if I felt like I was centered on the OR table, physically centered, which I thought at the time, I'm like, why would you ask me that? And I think I might even cracked a joke, something like, you mean you can't tell? I mean, you're looking over top of me. And then that was it. And then I was out. So there was no putting a mask on me that I remember. Hey, we're going to give you some oxygen, and that was the knockout gas, and you'll never know. There was none of that. They must have put something in the IV as soon as I got in there, or right as I was being wheeled in, and I was out. As soon as I transferred over to that table, They asked me if I was centered. I said, yeah, it feels like it. And then that was it. And so that was that. So I was out cold, and that's the last thing I remember before surgery. So post-surgery, right? So post-op, I awoke to being wheeled somewhere, and a bunch of, at least 3, if not 4, doctors and nurses were, Mark, are you awake? Wake up, Mark. Wake up, Mark. Like, it felt like, a bunch of them in my ear. And I said, hey, I'm awake, or something like that. And they told me, surgery's done, everything went well. And I just remember feeling very tired. I was just really tired, but also awake, because Jesus Christ, this is done, and then I realized I'm not feeling any pain, like a little bit of shoulder soreness, but nothing. And I'm thinking, okay, brace yourself, because it's going to hit. And when it does, you're going to be in pain, right? But that pain, by the way, it never came. And I'll talk about that in the next video. But I was never in any pain, really. To this minute, I don't know why. So anyway, they wheeled me into, I believe it's called a PACU, but it was just a post-surgery, let's keep an eye on the patient for a while. I think you're normally supposed to be in there, and I only know this from the pre-op video they sent me to watch before showing up at the hospital. They said you'll be there up to 2 hours. It was a super busy day that day, apparently. I was there almost 5 hours, like to the point where they actually brought my wife up to this area, which is normally, and it was made very clear that's not normal. But she came up to visit me. I was getting annoyed sitting there waiting, but hey, it was what it was. It was so busy. They just didn't have any beds in the hospital. So sat there, and the whole time I'm just thinking, when's the pain gonna come? Because everything I had heard was this was going to be a really long 1 to 2 weeks for me, pain-wise, post-surgery. And so I waited around. I'm sitting there, and the nurses would come in and ask me, how are you feeling? And I tell them, I feel good. I feel fine. My wife didn't believe, no one believed me, but it was true. And then it occurred to me, I'm probably still on the anesthesiology, and they probably pumped me full of some type of pain meds during the surgery, maybe, or right afterwards, and I didn't know. So I just kind of hung tight, but waiting for that pain. It never came. I am very rare. I've talked to a couple of people online who said, yeah, similar story for me, but the vast majority of people have gone through this have been hurting for a while afterwards. So I thank my lucky stars. So it felt like forever, but 4 to 5 hours later, I was finally moved to a room, which I didn't realize till I left, turned out to be in the ENT wing of the hospital, not the neurosurgery wing. I wasn't all that impressed with the care, quite honestly, of most of the staff. I won't get into too much detail, but there were a couple that were really great, that really helped me out. I didn't ask much. All I asked was, when I had to go to the bathroom, I wanted to get up physically and go. And I wanted to walk. My goal was to get up out of that bed. I remember reading, or maybe my surgeon might have mentioned it, you need to walk. The nurses, that nurse or nurse practitioner that I had last spoken before surgery to, she told me, don't just lay around after this. Walk, and you'll reap the benefits. So I had that in my mind going into this, that I wanted to be moving. They wouldn't let me. They were just so busy that they wouldn't, and I had to be physically monitored. So I eventually, on day 1, I was able to get up because there was a tech, nurse tech, that was free for a period of time. So my wife and I, she offered, when I asked, and I said, yes, please. And I walked about a mile, she said. We went 4 laps around the whole hospital corridor. Anyway, when they did wheel me in, I do remember this one, when they did wheel me in to post-op, the first thing I checked was, do all my limbs work? And they did. I then noticed the little bit of right arm scapula and shoulder pain I had from the radiculopathy was gone. Still numb, and it still is here. This has been going on for many years. I don't expect it to go away completely, but it's different. The feeling, the numbness, it's not as numb. It varies by the minute, it seems, in terms of the level of numbness. And most importantly to me is my fine motor skills with this hand are back. So I can sign my name and it's legible now. It's not just a scribble. I can button buttons, and it's not like, I could always do it, but it's not like a fumbling around thing. So I am very hopeful that I'm going to get more than I'd hoped out of this surgery. Reasonably hoped, anyway. Anyway, when they did wheel me into my hospital room, they said, hey, we'll lift you up and dress. I said, no, I want to get up. And I said, they're like, you sure? I'm like, yes. Remember, these are ENT nurses. So they're not used to a guy walking in with a big hole in his neck, right? So they didn't know what to make of me, I don't think. I got up and I felt completely fine while I was waiting for this moment. As soon as I stood up, I was very wobbly in my feet, and I didn't expect that. I expected to dance my way onto that bed with no problem. It was a little scary. I thought, oh my gosh, hopefully this is temporary and I'm not gonna have to relearn how to walk. And it turned out it was. When later that afternoon, when I finally got someone to walk me, I was able to walk, no problem. Still, getting used to the hard collar I was in at the time. It was tricky, but no problem. And that was it. The next, so I was in the hospital for one night. They discharged me the next night. That day, my heart rate was high. My heart rate was around 110, 111. And during the walk, it was got up to like 120. That's way high for me. And we don't know why that was, but it went down the next morning. So when they came in, the surgeons came in, they checked on me. They said, your heart rate's back down, so you're good. And by then, my swallowing, I was able to eat food that night and breakfast the next morning, although I had major swelling. So it was hard to swallow, but it was not, I could eat. In fact, eating food wasn't really a big problem. It was more this. It was drinking out of a straw. Even now, 1 week later, there's a little bit of I have to force it a little bit. But the swallowing thing, which is what my surgeon and I expected to be a problem for 2 weeks, is almost gone. Maybe another week to get that last bit of swelling. When I first wake up now, the last couple of days, when I first wake up in the morning, drinking liquids it's tougher, but eating's not a problem. Hasn't been a problem for me. So that's that. I was discharged the next day, so one night in the hospital. Surprising to me is, the last time I was in a hospital, I was a young kid, and I remember they required to wheelchair you out. You couldn't just walk out on your own. Not me. They were like, okay, you're good. You're good. Thanks for coming. And I said, that's it. And they didn't even need to walk me down. So I grabbed my very light bags and, with my equipment that they the collars, 3 different collars: hard collar, soft collar, and this is the soft collar, and a Philly collar, which is for showering, and a spirometer, which I did religiously there for a few days up until really up until yesterday, day before yesterday, and that was it. I went home. Ride home was fine. It's still a little. That's the one time I feel something in my neck is when I'm in a car and they accelerate or hit a pothole. I'll feel like, yeah, it's not great, but it doesn't hurt. It's just like a weird feeling. But otherwise, I've been good. I'll do another video about post-surgery and that first week home. But in a nutshell, first 2 days, I was in shock that I was still not in any pain. Maybe I took a couple Tylenol, the OTC Tylenol. I was prescribed muscle relaxant, some pain narcotics for pain, all that stuff. I didn't even get it because I just never had pain. And it's been a week now, a full week, and still don't. I'm so fortunate and thankful for that. Unfortunately for me, the week leading up to the surgery, I had a runny nose, and I thought, oh, maybe it's allergies. I don't normally get allergies, but maybe that's it. No, it was a cold or a sinus infection or something coming on, because 2 days after I got home, so last Friday, it hit me, and sinus pressure, very stuffy. I felt terrible for the weekend. And yesterday was the first day I started feeling really good. So if it wasn't for that, this would have been a dream recovery scenario. And now it's starting to feel that way. I'm feeling great today. Felt good yesterday. I'm actually going to maybe go for a walk outside here. Yeah, it's been great. And so I'll leave it at that. I know this is a really long video. I'm trying to keep these short, but I know how important knowing what these types of details and the experience were to me in the few videos that I watched prior to going in for surgery, so I know kind of what to expect. So I hope those of you that are going to get this surgery, like me, that had no choice, it was either get this surgery or likely paralyzed. And in fact, the odds of my impending paralysis, went up drastically once they got in there and saw what the situation was. Apparently, it was much worse than they had seen on the imaging. So not a day too soon. So I'll leave it at that. And if you have any comments or questions, I'm happy to answer them. And my next doctor visit is next 1 week from today. Will be my 2-week, which is not with my surgeon. Unfortunately, my surgeon is very hard to get into. It took months to get in to see him in the first place. And so I'm with a local in my town, someone affiliated with him, who a nurse practitioner is going to see, that specializes in neurology, is going to see me next Wednesday. My guess is the incision, steri strips and all that, they'll take care of any last bits of that need to come off, and then I will await my 6-week appointment. Until then, I have to wear collar. When I'm sitting or sleeping, I can wear the soft collar, which is quite comfortable. When I'm moving, standing, walking, I have to wear a hard collar, which isn't that bad. If I had to wear the hard collar all the time, I could do it. Sleeping would be tough, but doable. And that's it. I don't drive, obviously. Thanks, everyone. If you're getting this surgery, hang in there. I know it's tough, but you can do it, and it's well worth it if you need it. So good luck to you.